Alright, today's objective is that you will learn how to describe major characteristics of graphs. You already know a few major characteristics, such as the y-intercept and the zeros or x-intercepts, so I'm not going to talk about those today, although those definitely fall under the category of something you would want to know. Today we're going to talk about four things: intervals of increasing and decreasing, and then maxes and mins. So an interval of increasing or decreasing is read from left to right. So the easy one to see here, there's a big increase right in the middle, but clearly this graph changes a bunch. If you read from left to right, it decreases, and then it increases, and then it decreases, and then it increases, and then it decreases. So this has a total of 5 intervals in which it does one or the other. And I'm going to write all 5. We write the interval from the lowest x value to the highest x value, just like we write a domain. Now, this graph, you noticed, it gives you all the y values too. You have to know that those are not how we write an interval in a function. So, I'm going to start writing here. This graph, when I first look at it far to the left, is decreasing. And it starts decreasing, well, it kind of never starts decreasing, because right here, it looks like it just keeps going, which means it's been decreasing all the way back since negative infinity, and it stops decreasing right there at -4. Remember, we're only talking about x values. So this graph is decreasing from negative infinity to -4. As soon as it stops decreasing, it starts increasing. So it's increasing, starting immediately at -4, and it keeps increasing until it gets to right here, which has an x value of 2.5. So it increases from -4 to 2.5, after which it immediately starts decreasing again, and it does that from 2.5, right where it left off, until 4. And then finally, not finally, there's going to be another. It increases from 4 to 5, so just a very short little increasing. And then finally it decreases, and this is finally from 5, and it just keeps decreasing forever, it looks like, because the line goes to the edge. So it decreases from 5 all the way to infinity. Notice all of these are x values, none of these are y values. The one thing I'd like to point out about this is that all of these had parentheses and not brackets. I don't really care if you use parentheses or brackets, but if you think about like that point right there, where x equals 4, if you ask yourself, is it increasing or decreasing at that point, you would probably say, well, neither, because that's the turning point itself. So for that reason, like -4 is not included in either the decreasing or the increasing. Same thing with all these. We tend to just use parentheses all the time for these intervals. The last thing we want to talk about is maximums and minimums. And you probably know a maximum as being a highest point of a region, not necessarily of the whole graph. And we are going to classify each max and min that we see as a relative max, which would mean just the highest point of its area, or a global, an absolute max, which would be the highest point of the entire graph. Now, this graph seems to have two maximums, one at 2.5 and one at 5. These are like kind of little mountaintops there. And I'm going to classify both. So for the 2.5, does that look to be the highest point of the entire graph? I'd say no. It's clearly not even as high as that one. So this is a relative max, and I'm just putting an R in parentheses there. For this one, x equals 5, does that seem to be a highest point of the graph? Well, it might look like it, but if you look way over to the left, this line definitely goes higher. So this is also just a relative maximum. It's not an absolute maximum because it's not the highest point of the graph. So we have two maximums, but neither are absolute maximums because this graph, the range goes up to infinity. Now we're going to look at minimums. And you'll notice it's going to be a similar story. We've got two minimums, one here at -4, that's a low point, and one here at +4, which is also a low point. And just like last time, -4 and +4, both of these are going to be relative minimums. I know this one looks like it's the lowest point of the graph, but if you imagine what would happen if this kept going, this line decreases forever, which means that it goes way lower than this point right here. So this point at 4 is certainly not the lowest point, and this point at -4 is also not the lowest point. Both of these are relative, so this particular graph has no absolute maxes or mins, and that's fine. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. Moving on to the second example, it asks us to draw something. And this is going to have obviously many answers because you just have to draw something that increases, decreases, increases, decreases at these particular intervals. Now, keep in mind these are all x values. So this increases from negative infinity to negative 4, and then decreases just until negative 3, then increases until negative 1, and then decreases for the rest of the graph. The way I do this is I make a vertical dotted line to divide the graph wherever there's one of these changes. So here's negative 4. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I've got a dotted line at negative 4. And I'll do one at negative 3. And I'll do one at negative 1, and then that will be it. So, when I draw this, I need to draw a graph that's increasing in this first region, and then decreasing for this region, and then increasing for the third, and then decreasing for the rest. This could look like a lot of different things, but here's one version. Increases, decreases, increases, and decreases forever. Here's another version. It increases, and then it decreases, and then it increases, and then it decreases forever. You notice that these clearly aren't the exact same graph, but they kind of look the same. And you can kind of do whatever. I'll do one more, and then this will be it. Here it increases, and then it decreases, and then it increases, and then it decreases. All of these show the same intervals of increasing and decreasing, so all of these are potential right answers, along with whatever else you would draw. So that is it. Our objective was that you describe major characteristics of graphs.